So I'll start off by telling you a little bit about the global context. I will talk a little bit about the local energy sector and what's going on. I will tell you what's happening in the traditional local energy sector, as well as what's happening in that carbon reduction and renewable energy space a little bit as well. Now, one of the things that I want you to remember is that overall, the energy sector is integral to the long term economic growth and development of the country. It contributes significantly to government revenue and export earnings, as well as GDP. So, by the end of the presentation, I hope that you start actively thinking about the contribution that you are going to make in the energy sector and the different routes that you can actually take to do that. So, as I mentioned, when we think about the energy sector, you have to see it as one of the key sectors, and this is globally, as one of the key sectors for economic growth and development, not just for energy producers like Trinidad and Tobago, but also for energy consumers. Now, why Kenson School is highlighting this. So, the school itself is a post secondary technical school that prepares students for employment within the energy industry. But one of the things that the school has recognized is that students that they put out need to be adaptable. And that is what they've really focused their programs around, adaptability. So, what is adaptability and why is it important? Well, it's about being able to cope with change, and that change, we will inevitably experience it as we prepare for the energy transition. So the school has recognized that retaining and hiring talent in the energy industry and training and upskilling current employees for their current and future roles is key to maintaining the adequate supply of conventional energy, as well as expanding renewables capacity and fostering innovation in new technology areas. The energy transition will inevitably need hundreds of thousands of people entering the energy industry workforce, while oil and gas will continue to need skilled professionals as countries look to boost their energy security by ensuring conventional energy supply also remains stable. And that's one of the things the school has recognized and has ensured that they're putting a lot of emphasis on as well. So we know that historically, Trinidad and Tobago has been a producer of oil and gas for over a century. Natural gas has been commercially utilized since 1953, and most of the gas is either exported in the form of LNG, used in the petrochemical sector, or used to generate electricity as well. But before I get into the TNT energy sector a little bit, I want to tell you a little bit about the global context. Then we'll get into the Trinidad and Tobago energy sector, and we'll look at how the global context is actually affecting the local energy sector a little bit. So from 2020, we witnessed an unprecedented period rather with the outbreak of COVID-19, and it really pervaded almost every aspect of daily lives. The pandemic also had a detrimental impact on both the world economy and the global energy sector. It pressured nations to take necessary measures to slow the spread of the virus and to also rethink energy security a little bit. The market actually saw demand in free fall. You saw global storage filling up quickly, and you saw large scale volatility in the oil prices as well. And this propelled OPEC and its partners to come up with this sort of declaration of cooperation to intensify their collaborative efforts to restore much needed stability, resulting in the largest and longest voluntary production adjustments in the oil markets. The importance of these efforts was actually recognized by numerous countries and organizations, and such a move was crucially necessary. And why? It's because oil prices have seen some degree of volatility. The latest turmoil I just mentioned, but there have been others before that. When you look at the history of oil prices, You see swings over the span of several decades. Prices move up and down, and they've been sparked by a long list of events, including the Arab oil embargo of the early 1970s, the first Gulf War in the early 1990s, and the Great Recession between 2007, 2009, and then, well, the recent 2020 crisis I spoke about. The historical chart here shows the volatility with prices I mentioned just now. And you see that oil prices remain volatile even as nations strive for stable and predictable growth. OPEC had to step in, as I mentioned, many times to quell this volatility and bring about some stability with oil prices. But there's still events that are outside of their control that will inevitably have an impact. And some of these would be the war in Ukraine, the discovery of huge amounts of oil and gas in other provinces, the development of oil resources in other provinces, the reopening of oil trading between US and Venezuela, developed countries sort of returning to fossil fuels, and the recognition of the impact of carbon emissions on climate change as well. So while I mentioned the energy transition and the need for rapid development of renewable energy technology, which will inevitably happen, what we are seeing is that traditional sources of energy continue to play a key role in economic growth for a lot of countries. So this chart actually shows that oil is still the most consumed primary energy fuel in the world at about 31%. This gives you a snapshot of post COVID-19 oil and gas investments. Exploration and production companies are realizing some of their largest profits in history, but we are seeing investments fluctuating a little bit. And this makes us question whether or not the industry is investing in future growth. And I can tell you they are, but just in different ways. Oil and gas reinvestment is still viable and it is still happening, but it's been diversified. You're seeing capital allocation to exploration being downsized a little bit in the wake of the pandemic, but several key exploration strategies have emerged. And one of them being the rapid development of high return new finds in conjunction with energy transition objectives. And we just have to look right in the region to see that sort of investment in rapid development, new areas. You just have to look to Guyana to see that. So Renee touched on regional opportunities, which I'll also touch on. So in Guyana, you have the Liza phase one. I'm sure a lot of you would have heard about the developments happening in Guyana and how exciting it is, not only for Guyana, but for the region as a whole. So Liza phase one was developed in 2015, well, rather discovered, and it was developed within 5 years, which is an extremely short period of time. But what they did was that they ensured that they put the right regulatory environment in place in order to ensure rapid development. And then there were subsequent discoveries after Liza 1 as well. So Guyana's total oil production is expected to get up to just over 1 million barrels of oil per day by the late 2020s. And just to contextualize that, Trinidad, our peak production would have been about 250,000 barrels of oil per day. So when you compare that to Guyana, you can understand, what Guyana is on the cusp of, right? You also saw rapid execution, that rapid execution principle gaining momentum in other nearby areas. We saw it happening in Suriname as well. Although in Suriname, there's a little bit more uncertainty in terms of what's happening and some of the developments there. Right? Now, all of this is really to say that oil will probably remain one of the most consumed primary energy fuel in the world, right? So it's going to be around for a long time. Natural gas as well, same thing. We're going to see the same thing happening. It is going to be a transition fuel for a very long time. I'll now touch a little bit on the Trinidad and Tobago energy sector in a little bit more detail and some of the potential areas of development and opportunities. So, as I would have mentioned before, Trinidad, we've had a long history in oil and gas. One of the first commercial wells in the world was drilled in Trinidad and Tobago. We have onshore and offshore oil and gas developments. We have over 50 offshore platforms. We have a strong downstream sector. We have very strong infrastructure. We have 8 methanol plants, 11 ammonia plants, 4 LNG trains. And now the country is taking active steps toward reducing emissions by implementing renewable energy technology and looking at other sources as well, such as hydrogen, which I'll touch on. Now, one of the things that you would hear about when you talk about the energy sector in Trinidad and Tobago would be declining oil and gas production. We have seen declining oil and gas production, but what we have also seen would have been higher oil and gas prices, which would have been a bit of a saving grace for us in terms of revenue. But we have to ensure that we can still put measures in place to address the decline that we are seeing, because we know that high commodity prices are not sustainable. And we know that because I showed you what price volatility looks like. Sometimes prices are high and sometimes they're extremely low, right? So we can't bank on high oil prices. This is a snapshot of crude oil production, a snapshot of gas production. And this slide gives you a snapshot of natural gas utilization by sector. What you would see is that most of our natural gas actually goes to power generation, right? And then you have some going to downstream sector, etc. This is a snapshot of LNG production. LNG provides a relatively clean source of energy and is price competitive with other fuels for distant markets. And in recent years, LNG has become a critical element in meeting the world's growing energy needs as well. So it's going to continue to be something that we put some emphasis on. Now, Trinidad's methanol industry dates back all the way to 1984. We are actually one of the largest producers of methanol, and methanol is used largely as feedstock in the manufacture of chemical products. We're also an ammonia producer. We have 11 ammonia plants that include 2 ammonia complexes on the Point Lisas Industrial Estate, with a total annual capacity of about 5.2 million metric tons. And I want to touch now, so we spoke about the traditional energy sector. Let's touch a little bit on some of the decarbonization projects that we're seeing coming about. So Trinidad has started focusing on decarbonization projects. We have actually made nationally determined commitments. We have these international ambitions. The objective is for Trinidad's NDC to achieve reduction objectives in overall emissions from 3 target sectors. You have power generation, transportation, and industry. We also want to ensure that we have 30% renewables by 2050. And we've been putting things in place to ensure that. We do have a large-scale solar project coming on stream. This project is a significant milestone for the future of Trinidad and Tobago's energy transition, as it's going to be the first large-scale solar project. There is also a planned solar park at Piarco International Airport, and this will also contribute to our commitment to the UN nationally determined contributions to reduce carbon emissions by 2030. And with more electricity being generated from these projects, it would free up some of our natural gas to be used in downstream activity as well. It's another renewable energy project. And these are a couple more that we have coming on stream, right? So a lot of exciting things happening in that renewable energy space for Trinidad and Tobago. There is also a United Arab Emirates Caribbean Renewable Energy Fund, and Trinidad has been the recipient of some of that grant funding as well. And what we're actually doing is that we're trying to green the energy sector, the traditional energy sector. So there are also efforts in that space. We have the De Novo Zandali platform. It's to be powered 100% by solar and wind. We also have the Trinity Tank Farm at Galeota, And the anticipation is that we're going to use this site for wind resource assessment. So what we're seeing is that as we prepare for the energy transition, we are looking at non-traditional sources of energy. We have the new gen hydrogen project called to really kick off in 2027. Hydrogen is gaining popularity worldwide as a pathway through to the energy transition. And it's really an opportunity to also decarbonize the petrochemical sector in Trinidad and Tobago as well. And there are other things that we're doing. So when we think about oil and gas, right, we tend to think about multinational companies. We tend to think about BP and Woodside, etc. But in the energy sector, there are these energy services companies as well. And what they do is that they provide services to the operators, right? In fact, at the Energy Chamber, the energy services members actually make up most of our membership. And some of them are small, and then some of them are actually quite large. And you would think that it's the operators that employ most people in the energy sector, but it's not. It's actually the energy services sector, right? So we believe that what is necessary is to strengthen that energy services sector. So we've been doing a lot of work in terms of local content development and ensuring that the energy services sector remains viable and very competitive. And so far, they're extremely competitive. We have energy services companies working globally and regionally. And they also, as I said, they absorb a lot of students coming out of the Kenson School as well. So we've been looking at how we can enhance local content development through the services sector. And we've been making a lot of strides in that area. We've actually we've gotten operators to sign on to something called a local content charter. And this is also aimed at strengthening the energy services sector, right? So there is this commitment by 21 operator companies to ensure that they put measures in place to strengthen the services sector. So that sector also remains viable. And what we have been seeing is that the services sector have been tailoring and changing their offerings and moving away from traditional oil and gas and now being able to actually offer services in decarbonization projects, which is huge because it shows just how innovative the energy services sector is in Trinidad as well. So this brings me sort of to the end of my presentation, but I really hope it has instilled in you a great deal of excitement about the Trinidad and Tobago energy sector, about what's happening regionally as well, and what is yet to come for the energy sector. I hope you now have a clearer idea of where the opportunities are, where you might see yourself fitting in, and then I hope, well, at least my anticipation is that you see the Kenson School of Production Technology as the vehicle to actually get you there.